Now, normally I like to get out and about. I know Simon, who's going to speak to you later, likes to get out and about and be amongst you, but we're actually broadcasting to you in the room here. We're also broadcasting online. We've got people joining us from home counties, from the Middle East. So we're a truly international audience this morning. So I am pretty much based around the lectern so people can see me through the camera. So I hope that works for you guys as well. So we've got a stellar lineup for you today. So really interesting sessions. Can I first of all say thank you to our sponsors, and many of your places have been paid for by them, with a particular mention today to Selena, who's the education team manager at Amazing People Schools, who's joining us to speak to you face to face. I'm not going to say too much about that. What you need to do is go and talk to her about, hello, yes, so he's got a hand up over there. You need to go and talk to her about what her product can do for your school. And if you are into diversity and stereotypes and role models and getting forwards these character education that takes you through into some of PSHE requirements, which is going to be even bigger next year, then she's the lady to speak to. Today's sessions are all about building the right learning environment for your school. And we're going to focus on three particular aspects to give you food for thought. We're going to talk about, or maybe we're not. Nope, never mind. We'll go back to old school. We're going to talk about three particular things.
Do you want me to get some tea?
I hope not. There we are. We're away. We're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about people. Who is going to deliver this wonderful learning environment for you? We're going to talk about place, where it's going to happen. And we're going to talk about the pedagogy, how this is going to happen as well. And our speakers today are going to focus on different aspects of this as we go through. Yes, we're right. And I'm going to start with some thoughts on building a sense of team with your staff. So when the time comes to embed all sorts of exciting new initiatives, they're in the frame of mind where they're actually going to go with you rather than fight against you. Why have they asked me to speak about it? Well, I've been in education for about 30 years. I've been ahead for over 20. I've moved on now. I work as an inspector and a consultant. I get in a lot of schools. I see some marvellous leaders. I see some terrible ones. And I've worked for some marvellous leaders and I've worked for some terrible ones. And I think we could re-entitle this talk about things I have learned about building teams the hard way. I've got some of these things right in my career. I've got some of them terribly wrong as well. So that's why I stand here, not preaching to you, but trying to give you the benefit of experience. I think one thing that is clear, though, is at the end of the day, there's two ways to deal with your team. You can either beat them around the head severely and bend them to your will, or you can sell them a vision of a better future and through the right relationships, coax them along on the journey. And that's the approach we're going to look at today. I'm going to start with the work of an author called Bridget Hyacinth, written a number of books, most famously Leading the Workforce of the Future and the Future of Leadership. And her contention is that great bosses set the entire tone for the culture of a company. Get it right, people will follow you to the ends of the world. Get it wrong, you risk alienating and demotivating your entire workforce. And she talks in her book about bad boss behaviours. And these lead to poor employee engagement, they lead to stress, they lead to anxiety, and basically the whole organisation unravels in front of your very, very eyes. So let's talk about those for a moment. The first one, micromanaging. Bridget tells us this is the number one killer of innovation and creativity in the workplace. If you've hired someone to do a job, or you delegated a responsibility, give them the freedom to do it. Yes, you've got to check in every so often and do progress checks. You'd be an irresponsible leader if you didn't do that. But let them get on with it. Let them do it their way. That's how people grow and learn. Second one, having favourites. And we see this a lot in schools. You can walk into any staff room up and down the country, and there'll be a little huddle of people in the corner with whom the head has their coffee, and there's all sorts of giggling and nice noises. And then when new projects come up or promotions are there, it's those people that seem to get them. And the rest of the staff are left grumbling in a corner, wondering what's going on, We've got to be transparent. We've got to be open to everybody. Number 3, I remember early on in my career, one of my early responsibilities was to implement a new DT curriculum and actually build a new DT workshop in the school I was working in. And we were really, really proud of it. It went ever so well. And then the chair of governors came to do a great unveiling of the facility and was waxing lyrical about how marvellous it was going to be and saying how wonderful the head was for making this happen. And I thought, hang on a minute, that was my work. So please don't take the credit for your employees' efforts. Make sure you shine a light on them. They've done the work. They need to feel the pleasure from that. Not listening to another one. Bad bosses don't listen. They take feedback really badly. And if you're the one to even kindly try and avoid a pothole for them, they don't like it. And what happens is they tend to be aggressive, they tend to be nasty about it. Then, of course, what the rest of the staff learn is, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to get treated like that. And so you end up with a culture of compliant people and head my way or the highway. Not great for building relationships. Then we get the people who don't stand up for their team at all. More than happy to throw their team under the bus, as they say in the States. A number of years ago, a long time ago, actually, we were in another round of economic difficulties in this country, and the school I was working for, numbers were falling, and the governors decided they had to potentially make some redundancies to keep the school going. So I went in and I fought hammer and tongue for my staff. I lost. We did lose somebody, but the staff knew I'd tried to do the right thing. So even if it was a negative outcome, people appreciated what we'd done. So that's something as well. Stand up for your people. Even when they've done it wrong, stand up for them, at least in public. Overworking your team. This is one you probably all smile wryly at. I bet you've all had a boss who's done this to you. They throw deadline after deadline after deadline at you. They put all sorts of new initiatives on and never take anything away. You're smiling already, yes. And they don't understand what it is you actually do. And so they just keep throwing these ideas out. Again, you've got to be really careful with your people because they will take so much, but eventually, if they can't function, they're going to demoralize, they're going to take their foot off the gas, and they're going to stop functioning properly. The whole organization, again, spirals downwards. And the last one, not recognizing staff contributions. This is the biggest sin of all, I think, because this is so easy to sort. People need recognition. They like to be known. They like to be liked. They like to be recognized for what they're doing. So a manager's job is to facilitate a good working environment for their staff. Bad bosses create toxic working environments, and toxic environments drain employees emotionally, mentally, physically. And I've seen many teachers get themselves in this state of mind. So they're just turning up, taking a paycheck, going home. It's not good for the school. It's not good for the kids. It's not good for them. And actually, as a byproduct of this, do you know that people in that frame of mind who feel that they're working in a toxic environment take more sick days? So bad bosses are costing your school money. Well, mostly teachers in this room, I think. Do you remember a version of this when you're doing your BEd or your PGC or whatever? Yeah? We know that to function, children need at least shelter, food, warmth, so on and so forth. To function really well in the school, the kids need to be up towards the top of that pyramid. They need a feeling of respect. They need a feeling of self-esteem. They need recognition. Now, we know this is true for our kids. We build our whole teaching methodology around this kind of thing. But you know what? This wasn't just designed for children. This is for grown-ups too. Your teachers need exactly the same respect and so on as the kids do in order to function. Way back in the 90s, Elizabeth Mandel Glaser told us that if you want to get the best from your class, can you read that over there? The consistent use of positive language increases productivity, performance, and confidence. So we've known this for 30 years, but we're still getting it wrong with our grown-ups because it matters to your staff too. Modern teachers, as far as I can see, are committed. They bring their whole selves to work. Work matters to them, and they'd like them to matter to work as well. It's a two-way thing. And the stats here tell us that that's not always true. A huge proportion of our workforce simply don't feel appreciated. I've been thinking about this for a number of years, and actually just before lockdown, two big surveys were published by North American HR consultancies, Office Vibe and Workboard, and they came up with some absolutely fascinating findings, which I'm going to share with you now. Now, some of these findings, actually, you'll go straight to the nub of things. Some of them are a bit more provocative. I'm not saying I would have installed them in my school, all of them anyway. I throw them out there for you to consider and have a think about. So we often think of recognition coming after the big wins, don't we? So maybe you've had an inspection recently, it's gone really, really well. We do. We take a moment to celebrate what we've done well and what's gone well. But every piece of work going on in your school is worthy. And if it's not, why are you doing it? But if it's worthy of recognition. And the Office Vibe survey, called Employee Recognition Revisited, shows a strong correlation between whether employees say that their organisation celebrates accomplishments and whether the organisation trusts them. That's an interesting one, because the organisation, if you don't feel the organisation trusts you, why are you going to put your efforts into working for it? So to reap the benefits of a real culture of recognition, we need to move beyond just applauding big wins, and we need to embrace the learning that comes from failing as well. Now, again, I've been in some of your schools. I've heard you in assembly. You say this to the kids all the time. Doesn't matter if you got it wrong, as long as you've tried, as long as we're moving forward. The same with the staff. So if you, as a school, believe it's right for the children to learn from their mistakes and not to humiliate them because of their mistakes, why aren't you doing that with your staff as well? You need to build a culture where people are willing to have a go, fail valiantly, as long as they evaluate. And then that produces the sort of creativity and innovation that the kids go home and tell their parents about, that parents tell their friends about, and suddenly you've got people queuing up at the gates because you're doing something that bit different, that bit special. And creating this kind of environment builds with you, as a school leader, building your personal habits. You've got to make recognition and learning from mistakes part of everyone's day-to-day. You've got to do it as a reflex, not just when you remember and when you're in a good mood. And when you start to do it, and because you're the leader, and people hear the culture in your voice, they will echo that. And then suddenly, everybody's starting to talk in that positive way, and we're learning from mistakes rather than being critical of each other. So it really is a circle. Now, receiving regular recognition, according to the survey, impacts everything from people's commitment to and investment into their role and the relationship with their manager, the relationship with their peers. So we've got to get this right. And again, I've been in some of your schools. I've heard you say nice things to your subject leaders or to your senior leaders, your deputy heads or whatever. How many of you actually remember to stand by the door at the end of playtimes like we've had this week, where it's been snowing and raining, and thank the TAs when they come in soaking wet for being out there with the kids, that kind of thing? Or to thank the dinner ladies for sweeping up the gravy that some kids spilt. It's a whole team thing. It's not just the high profile people. That's what I'm trying to get across. Now, the employee survey that Office Vibe undertook showed 26 different measurements of engagement at work. And the strongest correlation between any two of them was recognition frequency and happiness. Recognition frequency and happiness. Now, if you're over 40, and other than Phil and me, I don't think anybody else is in this room, are you? This probably has got a limited resonance with you. But your younger employees crave attention, feedback, coaching. In fact, the surveys tell us that 75% of those labelled millennials and Gen Zs who took these surveys want more feedback and more coaching. So think about that. And it matters because we see a strong correlation between the feedback and coaching that colleagues are getting and their satisfaction. They show that by saying on a survey that their work is more fulfilling when they get this kind of feedback. that they have a greater sense of accomplishment and feeling that the feedback and coaching they get helps them grow and develop. We see that regular feedback helps in their relationships with their management. And we see that they feel the organisation trusts them. If the organisation trusts them, as I said before, they're more willing to invest in it with their efforts and their work. The other thing, people love having their strengths recognised. And as a canny leader, if you can play to those strengths, whilst at the same time developing the other skills as well, you're on to a winner. And yet, as we saw earlier, about a third of employees surveyed said they're unhappy with how frequently they are recognised at work. And this is so sad because it is one of the best, lowest cost, highest impact things you can do to build your team. And we're dealing with well-being here, and no one can afford to neglect that in the current climate. And remember, you want those highly motivated, highly engaged employees to follow you into the realms which may be unknown a little later on. If you're going to put some great initiatives into school, you need them on board, you want them with you. And if you get this right, the majority will follow you. So you want people to feel that their individual contributions are being recognised. How are you going to do that? Well, people have got different preferences when it comes to recognition. Some love the buzz of the big announcement in assembly where everybody can give them a round of applause and you can see them preening themselves and they love that. Others absolutely cringe at the thought of that and would prefer something much more low-key and quieter and private. And that's fine. But how are you going to know? Well, you're going to ask them, actually. Next time you have a meeting with a colleague, be it an appraisal or whatever it is, ask them. So this conversation might go something like, really love that thing you were doing with year 4 on fractions last week in your maths lesson. Can I share that as an example of good practice in our next staff meeting? Can I say it came from you? Ask the questions. It's not difficult. But we can't just be doling out compliments for the sake of it. People see through that straight away. It's got to be sincere. And I think it's quite important to make things specific. Think what exactly it was that impressed you about this colleague before you pay them the compliment. Was it their quick thinking, their courage, their adaptability, something with a parent, whatever? Don't just say, well done, all the time. That runs hollow, doesn't it? Well done because, I think is what we're trying to get across here. And if you know what their goals and values are as individuals, if you're really clever, you can tie the two together. You can tie that to something that you know is on their personal development plan to lead them forward as well. Timing matters too. It's never too soon to give recognition. I talked earlier about those big events like the end of an inspection or something where everybody gets congratulated or whatever. But how often do we actually congratulate people, recognise them, applaud them whilst they're on a journey? Yeah, this is going really well so far. I can see it won't be long before we're going to get where we need to be. Yeah, get in there early and keep them motivated and keep them bubbling and boiling. It's easy to stick to a task when you're being recognised as you go. And I think the other important thing is impact. And the best way to make people understand what they have done well is to show the impact of what they've done. So whether it's through a business measure, thanks, Amanda, for cutting your photocopying bill by 20% last half term. That means we've now got the money for that extra bit of kit we wanted. That kind of thing. A specific. It could be something to do with a parent. It could be that they supported a teammate. Thank you for covering that duty the other day when you saw no one was on the playground. Your colleague was stuck with a crying child. It was really good that you didn't leave the kids unsupervised. Thank you. That kind of thing. Be specific about what it is. Show the impact about what it is. Then you're starting to make people feel like an asset. Then they're more likely to be engaged, more likely to trust you, more likely to go on this journey of change with you. Do any of your schools have a simple code of conduct for the kids? Some schools call it golden rules, that kind of thing. Does it ring any bells? Yeah, yeah. HP have one as well for the grown-ups. And I think this is important as well. we have these codes of conduct because they act like a bit of a kind of North Star, don't they, to focus everybody's attitudes and values on the same kind of thing. And it's easy when you're dealing with a child to say, well done, you followed our example, our golden rule about kindness, for example, when you see them picking a friend up off the floor, that kind of thing. Same is true with this. So if everyone's aligned on what's important and everyone's got shared values, then you've got a common currency, a common language to talk why achievements were good. Is that something you dare do in your staff room? We'll see. Now, we're not that good at giving recognition in schools in the UK. We're pretty good at giving feedback. We do that quite a bit. So here's the trick. If you can make your feedback become recognition, then we're covering all the bases. And I think feedback should help people grow, develop and learn. I think it's important that we challenge them to see things from other perspectives. We give them milestones to help them on their journey. But I think the important thing about feedback is, number one, check your intent. Where is this feedback coming from? Are you being a coach? And coaches ask developmental questions. They set targets, manageable targets. They help you see the error of your ways and learn from your mistakes to move forward. Or is it coming from the attitude of a boss? Bosses tend to give instructions and subjective opinions. Let's be honest, there's a place for both. But try and be more coach than boss. Set the tone. Tell your employee, tell your teammate why it is we're having this meeting, why we're giving this feedback. And ideally, this is your chance to show that you're invested in their personal values and personal goals, and you are helping them steer them towards their goals. And sometimes we don't need next steps. Teachers are great at next steps. I was in a class inspecting the other day, and this kid was smile all over his face. He'd done really, really well on a piece of maths. And the teacher went, "That's great. Next time." Oh, come on. Sometimes just a thank you, a well done is enough on its own. We don't always need next steps. That can be just as demotivating as anything else. Now, they want your recognition, your colleagues, but actually, they don't work with you every day. They work with their year group partners, their departmental partners, however your school is structured. And it's that person that sees more of their day-to-day stuff and knows them better than you from your office might do. So feedback from peers is actually really, really important in developing this culture. And the Office Vibe survey came up with some really interesting tangible takeaways to help us get better at that. We can use meetings, a bit like the Hewlett-Packard example. You know, I love the way you spoke to that parent on the car park the other day. It meant this, this, and this, and this, this. And people can share those sort of things in meetings, team meetings, whole staff meetings, whatever you want. Some people don't like to say those things, but are quite happy writing them down. I went to a school in London the other week, and they've got a dedicated space. They've actually got a board in the staff room. When people have done something nice to you or for you or whatever, you put a sticky note up that says, "Well done, Norman," for whatever it might be. And that's quiet. It's understated. People generally don't see you putting it on. You choose a moment when it's quiet, don't they? And people like that. It makes them feel nice when they walk in and see their name on a board. They've been recognised by their peers. That matters. Other places do the random act of kindness. The Mars bar appearing in your pigeonhole to a little thank you like that. That works too. One school actually do an award. I'll share this one with you because this will be the one that I think probably gets you smiling the most. And what they do, every staff meeting, the person that had the award last week brings it back to the staff room and they say something nice, recognising a peer, a colleague, and they hand the trophy over. And the head writes down what's been said, and that goes up on the board. And then also, a bit like with you managing your awards with the kids, they write down who's had it on a tick list each week to make sure that no one gets it every week and no one never gets it. So yes, it's managed. You know, you buy your own class awards. You know, you make sure that every kid's had it, don't you, through the year. Same with the staff, but the staff don't seem to be aware of this at all. And it works. So you know, throughout the year somewhere, everybody's going to get a piece of peer recognition. which I think is absolutely fascinating. Again, some of you dare try? I'll leave it to you. So let's think about what we've just said. Oops. I'm missing a slide there. Getting the right relationships is all about recognizing people's achievements, recognizing their efforts, recognizing their contributions, and even when it's not gone quite right, building a culture where you can talk about mistakes without there being a sense of punishment. To do that, we need to coach, we need to feedback, we need to recognize people's things. We need to understand their personal style. Say, some people like public acclamation, some really don't. Know your staff, talk to them, ask them. And your words about being specific, about being sincere, and the timing all come together. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a year of you being actively doing this, then other people following suit and understanding it's okay to do it, for it all start to build up. Once it builds up, you've then got a culture where you can put in an innovation and people trust you and know you and believe in you and go, yeah, okay, we'll have a go at that. And you might be asking them to work longer hours. You might be asking them to do more work, but they'll do it if they believe in you. And all the things from these surveys tell us that. So use the word culture there. Let's finish with what a definition of culture might look like. Culture is how employees' hearts and stomachs feel on Monday morning, about Monday morning on Sunday night. So I'll leave you there with that. Thank you for listening.